Welcome to This Explainer. We usually break down some pretty complex stuff, but today we're diving into a mystery that's literally going to make your blood run cold. I want you to really visualize this scene for a second. It's the dead of night, pitch black. You're sitting in the oppressive, heavy silence of a nearly empty police station, and then the sound hits. A terrifying, ear-splitting screech of static that completely shatters reality. Imagine the sheer physical pain of that static in your ears. You're looking at a dead, unplugged radio, and it just violently sparks to life at exactly 2:20 a.m. Out of that echoing, crackling interference comes this desperate, trembling voice. "Hello, I am Arvind. I am in the school. Those kids, how do I get them out?" It's not just a voice, it's a transmission soaked in absolute terror. It sounds like it's echoing upward through miles of solid earth. But the scariest part? It isn't what the voice is saying, it's who is saying it.
Because Constable Arvind? He died 18 years ago. Okay, let's dive into this. How exactly does a dead police officer broadcast a live call for backup almost 2 decades after his own tragic murder? We're going to visually reconstruct this totally impossible cold case and uncover a supernatural truth that was literally buried right beneath our feet.
Section 1. The 2:20 a.m. dead caller.
So, to really get a grip on this, we have to look through the eyes of a skeptical private detective. He's sitting in that incredibly dark station with an aging, terrified officer named Constable Cranty, kind of just humoring the old man's claims of a haunted radio. The clock is ticking in that suffocating silence, 2:18, 2:19, and then boom, 2:20 a.m. The dead radio sparks. The auditory dread in that room is absolutely suffocating. Through the heavy static, the detective actually has a real-time conversation with the voice of the dead man. And the wild thing is, the voice doesn't know 18 years have passed. He's talking about dark, damp tunnels and children crying out in pain.
Section 2. An 18-year-old cold case.
Right away, the detective realizes this isn't just a broken mind, it's a broken reality. That radio signal? Just a symptom. Walking methodically through the timeline of the dark history that triggered this, the visuals are just deeply unsettling. 18 years ago, a beloved college professor suddenly snapped, taking 22 children hostage in a local school library. But the evidence totally defies logic. 2 children died without a single scratch on them. Their hearts had turned completely visually black, as if they were stopped instantly by pure, unadulterated terror. Constable Arvind went in to negotiate. Then, a massive explosion rocked the library. When the smoke finally cleared, the professor was dead, and Arvind, along with the remaining 20 children, had simply vanished into thin air.
What followed was a massive, terrifying cover-up. Honestly, the sheer scale of the madness here is overwhelming. Of the 4 other officers on the scene that night, 3 died mysteriously over the following years. The only survivor? Locked in a mental hospital, violently banging his head against the table, just repeating one chilling phrase, "Don't open the door." Meanwhile, all 20 families of the missing children secretly fled the city. They were driven completely mad by the haunting sounds of their missing kids echoing through their own homes. The police press basically sealed the whole case to hide an inexplicable truth. Now, what's really interesting about this is the massive plot twist the detective uncovers. The supposed villain, the hostage-taking professor, wasn't a killer at all. Actually, scratch that, he was trying to be a savior. He was a physicist deeply researching portals and ancient mantras. He realized a dark force had been accidentally unleashed in that school. He didn't take hostages to hurt them. He locked the doors to create a 24-hour window to banish a demonic entity and save those kids. But the police breached early, completely interrupting the ritual.
Section 3. The glowing library door.
Knowing this truth, the detective returns to the ruined abandoned school. The back of the building has been sealed off for nearly 2 decades. It's midnight. He stands in the charred remains of the library where the explosion happened, just waiting in the creeping shadows. And as the clock strikes 2:20 a.m., that exact time of the radio broadcasts, the environment violently shifts. The temperature in the room plummets so fast you can literally see your breath. The sound of his footsteps changes, echoing off a floor that is suddenly inexplicably damp. And then, from the solid ground, this unnatural, ethereal light emerges. An ancient glowing door manifests right out of the floorboards.
Section 4. Beyond the ominous portal. The next night, the detective brings Constable Cranty back, and together they open this glowing hatch. And trust me, what awaits them is Definitely not a basement. It is a mind-bending descent into a nightmare. They've opened an honest door. Let's clearly define this so we understand the terrifying stakes here. This is an ancient portal, summoned through dark mantras, connecting the human world directly to a demonic realm. And the absolute most terrifying rule of this space: it feeds on sound. If you make a sound, it will find you. Just imagine holding your breath in the absolute dark, knowing that one single gasp could end your life.
The visual rules of this realm are completely broken. Step by step, the detective and Kranti descend. First, there's this inverse gravity pulling them upwards while they walk downwards, with tiny particles just floating aimlessly in the dead air. Second, the ground is coated in pitch-black water, thick like tar. But the moment their bare feet touch it, it turns completely transparent. What would you do if the ground beneath you suddenly turned to dark glass? The eerie sloshing of this water is literally the only noise allowed, and they have to maintain absolute terrifying silence as they navigate this surreal dark tunnel.
Section 5. The Demonic Tree Entity.
At the end of this impossible tunnel, they find a massive red wooden door, and this brilliantly illustrates a horrifying duality. On the left side of this heavy door is Officer Arvind. He hasn't aged a single day in 18 years. He's bound by an unbreakable chain, desperately using all his strength to hold the red door shut. And on the right side, peeking through the gap, is the ultimate horror, a demonic tree entity with pulsing red glowing roots, just feeding on the absolute terror of the 20 trapped children.
The visual here is so visceral and immediate. Blood-red roots wrapping tightly around these paralyzed children. The red light violently pulses, directly attacking the children's minds, creating illusions of their absolute worst nightmares. The roots are acting like veins, literally sucking the fear out of them to grow stronger. And the agonizing, echoing screams of the trapped kids fill the otherwise dead tunnel. It's an unrelenting sound of pure nightmare.
But here's the game changer. The detective figures out the mechanics of this monster. The entity uses fear to create its physical reality. Because the detective isn't terrified, the red branches cannot physically grab him. They just pass right through him. He realizes that courage is the ultimate weapon here. He screams into the cavern, completely breaking the psychological hold of the monster. He empowers the children to fight back, to bite and tear at the roots. And as the children's fear turns to bravery, those terrifying red visuals physically wither away, turning to ash right in their hands.
Section 6. A hero's ultimate sacrifice.
He frees all 20 children, pulling them back through the red door. The unaged kids are finally safe. But as they prepare to escape back up to the human world, the victory turns devastatingly tragic. The demonic entity, completely enraged by losing its prey, is growing stronger. It's trying to force its way through the red door, into the tunnel, and eventually into our world. Then, the horrific realization sets in. Arvind's supernatural chains cannot be cut. And worse, the only way to seal the Anish Dwar permanently from our world is if someone willingly stays behind in the pitch-black tunnel to physically hold that red door shut from the inside. Arvind, without a second of hesitation, commands them to leave him. He chooses to stay behind in the nightmare to protect the city above. The portal is closed, severing the connection. The 20 children are returned to their bewildered, now aging families. But it leaves us with this lingering, heavy thought. Deep beneath the earth, does Officer Arvind still wait in the eternal floating darkness of the Anish Dwar, listening to the absolute, suffocating silence, forever holding that red door shut? The dead radio might be quiet now, but the terrifying echo of his sacrifice is something that will haunt us forever. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.